Alright, I've had several people ask about this problem, problem 2-8 from chapter 2. So let's just go through it here together. So the first part of it asks you to graph the points that are highlighted in yellow from the table here. In the table, you're given the student's set of opportunities. So this means they can make 100 on their economics test and 40 on their biology test, or they can make 90 on their economics test and 60 on their biology test. And you can see that as their grades go down in economics, their grades go up in biology, and vice versa. And this is to illustrate the concept of opportunity cost. You can think about in your own life. If you had two subjects you have to study for, maybe you only have a couple hours every night to study, you can choose to study for economics or to study for biology. And you can't study for both at the same time, so maybe the more you study for econ, the less you get to study for biology. So you do better on econ, but your biology then suffers because you studied for economics instead of biology, or vice versa. And so that is the concept of opportunity cost. You only have a limited amount of time in your day. You can only study for one thing at a time, and so you're going to have to balance this sort of trade-off between the two subjects. So that's what's illustrated here in the table. And then, so it wants us to graph that as the production possibilities curve. So the production possibilities curve you've read just illustrates, here are all my possibilities for scores that I could make in economics and biology. I can choose to devote all my time to economics and I make 100 on it, but I make a 40 on biology. I can choose to devote all my time to biology and make 100 on it, but a 40 in economics, or I can do something in between. And so we can graph that and kind of get a visual of what our options are as we choose how to study. So we know what we have a picture of what we can accomplish here. So that's our first task, is to graph this production possibilities curve for economics and biology. So it tells us to use the point drawing tool to plot the 4 yellow highlighted grade combinations, and do not label these points. So I always go over and click the little magnifying glass to bring up my graph bigger so it's easier to work with. And now the point tool is over here. So I'll click the point tool and I'll graph the first of these points here, the first yellow highlighted point. So the first one is 100 in economics and 40 in biology. And notice that economics is down here across the horizontal axis and biology is across the vertical axis. So if I'm going to graph 140, that'll be over here, 100 on the economics and 40 for biology. Notice 40 is the line across the bottom, so I'll just click that. There we go. So that's my first point. I'll go click the point tool again because I want to graph the next yellow point, which is 80 and 75. So I'll go to 80 on the economics and I'll go up to 75 on biology. So notice that 75 is not actually labeled on the axis, so I might get it a little bit off. If I click, it tells me now, oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the 60s, aren't I? But anyway, you see that it tells me that what I labeled was 80 and 64. See, it has a 64 over here. So I can just grab that point now and drag it up till I have the score I want. So I'll drag it up till it says 75. There's 74, 75, and 80, and then I'll drop it there. So now I've got 80 and 75, and that's what I wanted to graph. So I'll click the point tool again and go to the next one, which is 60 and 93. So 60 on economics and up to 93 in biology. Now I've got it at 96, so I'll drag it down slightly till I get to 93 and make sure I stay over at 60. There we go. 93 and 60. Perfect. And the last one I want to graph is 40 in economics and 100 in biology. And the axis, again, over here, the very corner is 40. So I'm just going to go up to the 100 on that line. So now I've got 40 and 100 graphed. All right, so those are my points. And that's the first thing it asked me to do, was use the point drawing tool to graph those 4 yellow points. The second thing it wants me to do is to use the 4-point curved line drawing tool, which you'll find over here. If you don't know which tool you're looking for, if you just hover over it, I'm not clicking, I'm just hovering my mouse over it, and it tells me what it is. So it tells me this is the 4-point curved line tool. Just like if I hover over this one, it tells me it's the point tool. So this is the 4-point curved line tool. Click it, and I want to use that to connect these 4 points. So all you do with this tool is you click each of the 4 points that you want to connect. So it tells you up at the top, click the graph to plot the first point of your curve. My first point is this one. Click on it. Plot the second point of your curve. My second point, I'll just click here on the second one. So I'm just going to go through and click these 4 dots. And when I'm done, I have the curve. So it automatically just pops the curve in there. And the last thing I need to do is label it, which I do by clicking the 3 little question marks here. And it gives me the options of how I can label it. And this is my production possibilities curve. So I'll just click PPC and get it labeled. And then I'll click Save. And there's my graph. Check my answer. It looks good. So just so you know, if you ever have any sort of graphing questions, wait, how do I use such and such graphing tool? You can always go up here to Question Help and click Grapher. And it will give you sort of a little tutorial. Okay, to pop up my pop-up. It'll give you a little tutorial on using the graph. So if I click here, it brings up all the graphing tools, and I can choose which one I want to play with, and it'll let me sort of play with how to use it before I go in and try to do it on my homework. All right, so the next thing we want to know is, using your graph, does the PPC illustrate the law of increasing additional cost? And yes, it does. How do we know that? It's because the graph is curved outward here. It's not a straight line. It's not an inward curve. It's an outward curve. We also can look here at the table and see that we gave up a lot more points to go from a 90 to 100 than we did to go from a 50 to 60, for example. So we'll see that in the next couple of parts of the question. So let's check that answer. The outward bow of the PPC tells us that the equal increments in the student's economics grade require ever increasing reductions of his or her biology grade. So this signifies the presence of increasing opportunity costs. So like I said, because it's bowing outward, it's not a straight line, and it's not curving inward. It's not bowing inward. Bowing outward, that means we have the law of increasing additional cost. All right, so now we look at the table, and we can talk about what the actual opportunity cost is for different economics grades. So they ask us for the opportunity cost to the student for the additional amount of study time on economics required to move her grade from 60 to 70 is how many biology points. And remember, opportunity cost really just means what did you give up to get this. So to go from a 60 to 70 in economics, so that's to go from here to here in economics, what did I give up in biology? When I had a 60 in economics, I had a 93 in biology, and at a 70 in economics, I had an 85 in biology. So that means I gave up those 8 points in biology just to increase my economics grade by 10. So whatever additional time I spent studying on economics to go from a 60 to 70 meant I suffered in biology and went down from a 93 to 85. So I gave up 8 points, which means my opportunity cost for those 10 points in economics was 8 biology points. So I'll put that in there, check my answer, and yep. And the last question it asks here is for us to do the same thing and see what is our additional amount of study time, or what was the opportunity cost to the student for the additional amount of study time on economics required to go from a 90 to a 100. So when I had a 90 in economics, or when the student had a 90 in economics, she had a 60 in biology. But when she studied enough to make 100 in economics, her biology score went down to a 40. So she lost 20 points in biology just to increase those 10 points in economics. So her opportunity cost from a 90 to a 100 was 20 biology points. And here again, you can see that concept of increasing additional cost. Because to go from 60 to 70, she only gave up 8 points. But now that it's up higher and she's trying to go from a 90 to 100, she's having to give up 20 points for that 10-point in economics. So she's got an increasing cost as her economics grade goes up. The cost to her biology grade is increasing. So we'll check that answer, and all good. All right, hope that helps. If you have more questions about this, feel free to stop by my office hours.